Alright guys, I get this question a lot. What are my favorite smartphones for gaming around the $200 price point? So let's go ahead and get started. So my first and favorite phone is the LG G8. This is the best one on the list, hands down. You can find this guy right now, the AT&T refurbished version for $214, and it's an absolute steal. You guys already know how I feel about this phone. I have 1,000 videos on it, and yeah, so just a beautiful phone. Just design wise, it's got an aluminum body. It just feels really great in the hand. It doesn't really get hot when you're gaming. It's IP rated as well, so you can get it wet. The great thing about this phone is it's a 6.1 inch POLED display, 1440p, 564 for the PPI. So you have just a huge resolution and huge PPI in a pretty kind of compact smartphone design, I guess, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. The colors, the brightness, your games, everything will just pop with this phone. Of course, you're running Android 10. This should get the Android 11 update, and the most important thing is you have the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640. This is still a flagship tier gaming chip. You can pretty much play everything on high, no problems. PUBG, Fortnite, whatever. This phone does not miss a beat with performance. You do have micro SD support. You can load up a ton of games with that, along with 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. Never had a problem with performance really on this phone. You have the micro or the headphone jack, 3.5mm jack with the quad jack. So basically, if you plug some headphones in, you will get an awesome experience if you have a good pair of high quality headphones. So you do have NFC on this guy as well for mobile payments, a very good Face ID and physical fingerprint scanner. You also have very good cameras on this phone as well. Be sure to check out my video if you want to see all of that into detail. But dual camera setup, 12 megapixel standard, 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K video, 8 megapixel selfie camera. It takes some pretty great photos, and you can load Gcam on it as well. So this is just a great phone. You have a 3,500 milliamp battery, 21 watt fast charging, along with wireless charging as well. Now, with my drain test, I got around 8 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time, which is very good. So that's like a day and a half of battery life for most people. Next is the Redmi Note 8 Pro. Right now it's around 214 bucks. It's a really great phone, one of my favorite phones of last year, and it's very good, a gaming phone. So this has a kind of premium design. You have a glass back on here, just feels super solid in the hand. It has a really nice weight to it as well. It's an IPS 6.53 inch display, have the little water drop notch. It's a 1080p 395 for the PPI. It's fairly bright and pretty colorful display. You have Android 10 with MIUI 12 on here, and the Helio G90T and the Mali G76 do a very good job with gaming. You can pretty much play most games on high, no problem. Doesn't matter what it is. I have gaming tests on all of these videos, so be sure to check those out. And this is another super solid performer when it comes to gaming. So you have micro SD support, 64 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM, headphone jack. This does support NFC and an infrared port as well. Physical fingerprint scanner is very fast, and you also have a really good quad camera setup. If you guys haven't seen my videos on it, it takes some really high quality detailed shots. 64 megapixel wide, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro, 2 megapixel depth sensor, 20 megapixel selfie camera. It just takes some excellent shots. You get 4K video as well. Now, battery life on this phone, it's not bad, but I will put it in like sort of like a B minus, because it's got a 4,500 milliamp battery with 18 watt, and my battery drain test did around 7 hours and 30 minutes, which is about right for this phone. So phones with smaller batteries, I've noticed 4,000 milliamp, you can get more battery life, but this phone just sucks up a lot of power. So again, 7 hours and 30 minutes, that's like a full day, no problem. So this is an all-day phone, but definitely not 2 days or a day and a half. All right, if you're looking for a phone around 200 bucks that's pretty compact and still kind of powerful, the iPhone 8 is definitely that phone for all of you guys that are into iOS operating system. This is still a great phone. It's very small too. It's got an aluminum frame, glass back on here, IP67, dust and water resistant, a 4.7-inch IPS Retina display. It's a 720p plus display, 326 for the PPI. It actually still looks pretty good since it's such a small display. It being a 720p plus display is not a huge deal. It's fairly bright and gives off some really good colors. This actually does run the latest version of iOS 14.1, which is awesome. So you have all of that, you know, the widgets and stuff like that, all the new stuff, and they'll probably get the next version of iOS as well, because this Apple A11 chip is still very good when it comes to gaming and stuff like that. As you can see here, you can play pretty much most games on high settings as well. I think the only game I couldn't play at high settings was Fortnite. But you do not have expandable storage on here. You have 64 gigs of internal storage and 2 gigs of RAM. You do have NFC, of course, with Apple Pay. You have the front-facing fingerprint scanner, which works very fast. The Touch ID is excellent. You also have pretty decently loud stereo speakers, which is something that I noticed. You have a bit of bass presence with these speakers as well. So the cameras on here are actually very good, or should I say camera, because it's only one camera, which makes this phone a little bit dated. You don't have an ultra wide or anything else, but it actually takes really good photos with just that one camera. So this is still a very dependable camera smartphone. So the front facing camera again as well is really good for FaceTime and selfies and all that stuff. So you do have a 1821 milliamp battery on here. So this is not a phone that is going to be like an all-day phone. From what I've noticed, it can kind of get you through the day. You're looking at like maybe 4 to 5 hours of screen on time. You do have wireless charging as well, so again, it's not going to be, you know, a beast when it comes to battery life, but it is still a very good phone to check out. All right, next is the OnePlus 6T. This actually got a really good price cut in the refurbished marketplace. It's literally around 200 bucks now, and this is an awesome phone. If you haven't seen my video, please check that out. It's got a full premium designs, glass and metal. You do have an optic AMOLED display on here. It's a 6.4-inch display, 1080p 402 for the PPI, a really nice vibrant bright display, water drop notch. One of my favorite things is Oxygen OS on top of Android 10. You have the latest version of that, and the only thing with this phone is you don't have expandable storage, but you have the Snapdragon 845 and Adreno 630, 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. So this phone again runs games at high settings, no problem. And again, my favorite thing is really the Oxygen OS skin. It's just really clean and smooth. One of my favorite things about OnePlus phones. And you also do not have a 3.5mm jack, unfortunately, with this phone. But if those things don't bother you, I still really like this phone. You have NFC on board as well as the fingerprint scanner under the display, which I think is always a very cool feature to have on any smartphone. Now, I think what's kind of underrated on this phone is the cameras. So you do have a dual camera setup. It's a 16 megapixel standard, and then you have the depth sensor as well at 20 megapixels. It's a 4K video, 30 or 60 FPS, and then you have the 16 megapixel selfie camera. And this phone actually takes very good photos. I think it's kind of underrated, especially with OnePlus working on the software. It just takes really very nicely detailed, actually pretty color accurate photos. I just actually really like taking photos on here. I like how they come out. So this is also a great camera phone as well at this price point. It beats a lot of even, you know, newer budget phones as well. So you do have a 3700 milliamp battery with 20 watt fast charging. Battery life again isn't going to be amazing on this phone. You're looking at around again like 7 hours and 30 minutes, which is very good for a whole day. So if you're doing some hardcore gaming, this is definitely a phone that you can, you know, play all day, plug in at the end of the day. Last is the LG V35. So this is an awesome phone because you can actually pick this up brand new for around $230, and in the refurbished marketplace it's around $180. So this is a great phone. I still really love this phone. If you haven't seen my videos, please check those out. You have a premium design, it's aluminum frame. Now a lot of people like this wide design. They don't make phones like this anymore, which is kind of unique about it. It's got like a wider body. It's IP68 dust and water resistant. It's a POLED display, 6 inches with no notch. So if you're anti-notch, this is a great phone to look at. 1440p 538 for the PPI. This phone is upgradable to Android 10, and you have the Snapdragon 845 and 6 gigs of RAM on here. Micro SD support with 64 gigs of internal storage. I just love this phone. I love the size of the phone when gaming. Like I said, the display is 1440p. It's just high res, beautiful, vibrant, colorful, and it's very powerful. You can play again pretty much most games on high. I have a full gaming test if you guys want to check that out. And it has a 3.5mm jack, quad DAC, so you can have high quality audio experience. NFC is on board. The fingerprint scanner is on the back. It actually doubles as a power button, which you might like as well. Battery life is actually very good on this phone. It's a 3300 milliamp battery, 18-watt fast charging with wireless charging. This phone easily gets up to 8 hours and above for me, so I've never had an issue with battery life. This phone always does a great job with it. So that's pretty much it. Those are my picks for the best gaming phones, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.